All right, second grade, we're going to have our science lesson today. So, as you know, we're going to, whoa, that was very loud. We're going to go ahead and look at today in our science book pages 75 and 79. And we're talking about fossils. Now, last week we talked about habitats. And remember, a habitat is a place where an animal lives. Now, I have two habitats that I want to show you. Normally, if you're here in class, I would get it out and we'd all look at it. But in our first little thing that I'm going to show you, this is a habitat, and I'm going to let you try and guess what it is.
Oh, I know what it is.
What is it, Ben?
It's a bird nest.
All right, so let me just show it.
Was it actually a bird nest?
So here is a bird nest. It was at my house. So I'll put it up here so you can see.
Egg.
So you can
It's
see
an
the
egg.
little egg. There was no birdie in it, but this is a bird's habitat. Their nest where they live. And you would find this, well, we found this, the birds like to plant their nests everywhere. But sometimes they'll put them in trees. This nest was actually up in like the eaves trough of our house, right up above like our door. So you can find, birds will just go anywhere to make their habitat and their home. And they use, as you saw, they use like twigs and mud. Now the next place that I think I want to show you, home, where would be, don't, stop. Let me take it out.
Whoa!
So
Was that in your
this was not at my house. Someone gave this to me. I can't remember. But this is the home of
I don't know.
a bee. A bee.
Oh, is that a beehive?
Sadly, there are no bees in this one. But I do have a hive that actually has dead bees in it. That just, I don't know, for some reason or other, they didn't live. But this is a bee's hive. And if you can see
I
here,
thought there was, like,
these
something
little
that
things are
covers it.
called the cells. And the larva, the queen, will plant little eggs inside of this. And the worker bees will feed the larva until they get big, and then they'll come out, and then there'll be different bees. They'll be the worker bees. Now, so that is the home of a bee. Now today, we're gonna switch gears and talk about fossils. What is a fossil? Well, we're going to read about it. So we'll read a little bit about it and then we'll talk about it. And then I have an activity, if you can do at home, you can at least try it. I'm sure all of you would have this to say. All right, so today we're talking about fossils. Now, if you're looking on your book on page 75, Ben's going to read the first paragraph and then I'll read the next paragraph. Nice and loud.
Scientists use rocks to find out about the Earth's past.
Many important clues come from fossils that are found in rocks.
Other kinds of fossils also give clues.
All right, so here's where it talks about a fossil. A fossil is the remains of a living thing that died long ago.
Oh, fossils from when living things are buried quickly by mud or sand.
All right, so fossils are formed when something has happened, a big change. Now, a lot of the fossils from a long time ago came from one big event. Can you think of one big, gigantic event that changed the whole entire world that had to do with the Bible and rain, lots and lots of rain?
No.
Ben can't think of it.
Wait, what did you say,
when
Bible?
there was in the Bible, there was a big event when there was lots and lots of rain. It had to do with Noah and the flood. Now remember, any animal that was on the boat was saved, but God didn't allow all the animals to be on that boat. He didn't allow all the people to be on that boat. Stop putting your hands in your mouth. So, all of those animals and the people that died, they were buried in the ground from the flood. And Ben and I have done something that kind of looks like a fossil. So here's my fossil. This looked like it's supposed to look like a little snail. Ben, show your fossil.
Don't like it. You're not gonna like it.
And here's my other fossil. So here's, you see a bone. So this would have been a bone that would have buried in the sand or in the rocks. And so the fossils, what would happen is whatever animal or people or thing it was such a quick death that their bodies and bones were just buried right in those rocks there. Don't do that. And so over the years, the scientists have gone through, archaeologists, and they have dug through the rocks and the different sites, and they've come up with bones. And that's why on the next page, you'll see on page 77, and then if you even go to page 79, you'll see a big dinosaur. And so this is where just from years of generations because of the quick suddenness from the catastrophic event from the flood, that is why we're able to recover all those bones, because they were just right at once, they were killed. And so that's why you can usually, for some of them, find all of their bones right in the same area. Now, at the very next paragraph here, it says, people think differently about fossils. Some think fossils formed over millions of years. And these people believe in evolution. And a lot of people that are scientists, especially if they're not Christians, they will think that it took years for all these things to happen. But we know, because what God tells us in the Bible, that it actually came from the flood and different events. Now, and that's why we believe in creation, that God created all those things. Ben's going to read the last paragraph here.
The flood moved a lot of mud. The mud quickly buried some living things. After the flood, the mud dried. Fossils formed as the mud dried. Fossils are found all over the earth. They are found in deserts and prairies. They are even found on mountains.
Now, I want you to think about that. They have found animals that don't live in the desert, buried. Why do you think that scientists have found animals in spots where that's not where their habitat would have been? Why do you think that, Ben? It all had to do with one event. And we just read about it.
Oh, found on deserts and prairies.
Why were they found there? Ben read it, he said because of the flood. Now remember, the flood, everything's water, so people would have been carried in spots where they never normally would have been. Even the animals would have been put in spots where they never would have been. So the flood buried people wherever they were, or carried them and then buried them. So that is why scientists can't explain that. But we know as Christians that is from God. That is from the flood, and that is why we can find all of those things there. Now, you'll go ahead and read the next couple pages on your own, and your activity that I want you to do. If you have Play-Doh at your house, go ahead and you can make your own fossil. There were other kinds of fossils. This is a fossil that would have been in a rock, and you can see here it has a little geode stone, and that's buried inside. You can also just go ahead on a piece of paper. You can just color all the paper brown, and then take an eraser and erase your bone, the picture of your bone. All right. I hope you enjoyed this time. I'll probably include a video that you can enjoy that would talk about fossils and different things. But one thing you do have to remember that, especially when you're watching shows, a lot of the information will not be factual. You will hear people say that the bones were millions of years old. Now, do we know that things are millions of years old?
No.
They are not. Because God, in his timing, our timing here on earth has been very short. Definitely not millions of years. So anytime you hear people talk about millions of years, they're talking about evolution. And as Christians, we just can't support that, because the Bible tells us that God created the things, and he created it in a shorter amount of time. So when you hear that fact, millions of years, automatically think that's not what God tells us. All right? Keep that little tip. See you later.
Bye.